Alright, good evening everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Before we get started on this week's lesson, let's just talk a little bit about what we went over last week. Just a quick little review. So if you missed what we talked about last week, we talked about two main things. Well, I guess three main things. Talked about some different introductions. And other phrases. I'm not going to take the time to go over that because that itself will take quite a bit of time to talk about all the different things we mentioned, but that's, if you're wondering what you missed last week, that's what it was. We also talked about the particle ha, which is pronounced, in this case, as wa, specifically when we connect it to two nouns. For example, if I were to say Watashi wa eriyoto, it belongs. Let's do that. This is sorry about that. Watashi wa Elliot. So that's what we get there. And that wa, this character here, essentially is what our English equivalent of is. So this sentence would translate to I am, and I don't need to translate that, you guys should know what that means, that's just a name. So we talked about that, and we also talked about the particle no, which indicates possession. Not like necessarily like physical ownership, but sometimes it does. Hey Yui, how are you doing? Hope you're having a good night. So here, like we have here no. So let's say that we're talking about this stream here being my classroom. This would be, we could say, you could say boku no, I'm gonna write this one in hiragana, yoshitsu. This reads as boku no yoshitsu, or my classroom. And the way the grammar works there is that this no is used to extend the idea of some kind of a noun or object. Here, the second term is always that main idea. So we're talking about a classroom. That's what the topic of this phrase is. The boku represents I, myself. So this is my classroom. If it was reversed, yoshitsu no boku, it would be referring to me as a classroom, the classroom of me. So you have to make sure that the second term, what comes after the no, is the object that we're talking about. And that's just a quick rundown of the main topics that we covered last week. This week is going to be a little bit more focused. So let's go on to a new layer. And today, as you saw in the thumbnail, we're going to talk about some terms that we call the ko, so, a, do. And these terms usually refer, or not usually, these terms typically refer to specific locations. Locations relative to the speaker and to the person that you're talking to. That's why this video is titled Here, There, and Where, because we use it to signify things being close to us, far from us, or far from both of us, as well as questioning where things are. So we'll start with our first set of these terms. And at the end, I'll make a huge chart sort of explaining the different usage of these terms. So the first set of these terms we're going to talk about is the following. The words ore. We're going to talk about dore. We're going to talk about are. And we're going to talk about dore. So it's all these ko, so, do, each of these syllables, followed by the syllable re. When we say kore, that means that you're referring to something, an object, or a person, or not a person, usually an object. Yeah. This thing near me. Sore is when you're talking about something close to the person that you're talking to, but not necessarily close to yourself. We would say that thing near you. Are, similar to sore, also refers to something in the distance. Far away. And dore, we'll get to, or I'll say it now, dore is which thing, and is used as a question word. So these four terms all refer to objects and their position. The fourth one specifically refers to things as a question. So let's draw this out as a diagram here. Let me make a new layer. So if I were to do the following, let's say I draw one guy over here and someone else over here. And let's say we draw, let's see what I got. Let's say I'm giving him a pencil. That's a pencil, right? So, say I'm in a shop. This guy is at the counter. The guy with the pencil, the guy holding the item, would say something like kore wa ikura desu ka? They would ask, "Kore wa ikura desu ka?" or "How much is this?" Where kore refers to this, ikura refers to. Actually, let me mark this with a different kind of underline just so that it's a little bit more clear. So this is kore. How much, or much, would be ikura. And then the how is the that question term, that ka, like we talked about last week. When you end a question with ka, that indicates that you're saying that it's a question. So I'll mark it like this. Just using different underlines to showcase the different terms here. So kore wa ikura desu ka is how much is this? SunS37, thank you for following. Welcome to the classroom, and I hope you stay and learn a little bit. So, like we said, kore, this thing, the person is holding an item that he wants to purchase. Then, the clerk would respond with something like sore wa And we would say something like, I'll just write this in hiragana for now. Go yaku en this. A little cramped here. So this says それは500円です or that is 500 yen. That is 500 yen. And just to again mark those words, in this case here, それ is the speaker referring to the object that is being held. It's not near him, it's near the person asking the question. それは500円. That's just saying 500 is 500. We talked a little bit about numbers. Yaku being 500, Yaku being 100, go being 5. That's go hyaku is 500. And then en, unlike how we refer to Japanese money as yen, they just pronounce it as just en. And here, since the ends the sentence with this, that is just a statement and not a full, and it's not like this sentence here, which was a question. これはいくらですか? How much is this? それは500円です. That is 500 yen. So we use kore to represent something that is close to the speaker. Sore is used by the speaker to refer to something that is close to the person that they are talking to. That's the difference between those two. And then are is relative to say that the pencil instead was somewhere different. Say that the object was... Erase this. Am I on the wrong layer? I think I'm on the wrong layer. But let's say that the item was instead somewhere like here, all the way over here. It was like a big ballpoint pen, and it's over here. Then in that case, you would ask, あれはいくらですか? How much is that thing over there? So that's the difference between these three terms, kore, sore, and are. And then, in order to ask how much something is, there's a little bit of a different rule here. You can see for these first three terms, we use that particle wa, similar to how we use the word is in English. But when asking a question, we do have to change that particle. It's different from English, how we change the version of being based on who we're talking to. Hey, Mora. Like in English, we say I am, we say you are, we say it is. Am, are, and is are all the same word. However, Japanese, when you're talking to any person or any specific kind of like talking about any sort of topic or object, we always use wa. That refers to the term is and its different conjugations. Japanese, however, is context sensitive. In the case of asking a question, this term, we don't use wa anymore. Let me go to the next set here. Let me make a new layer here. And please make me a new layer. There we go. So we're going to talk about ka. And this is just a little note. So this particle, hey Seer, it's alright. You can always catch a little bit of the replay to see what you missed early. This topic repeats itself quite a bit, so I think you'll be able to pick up once we get to the next part here. This particle is used in place of wa when asking a question. So we use it when we don't know the topic, when we're first introducing a topic into the conversation, typically. So we don't know what we're talking about right now. I'm about to ask someone something, so I'm going to ask them, "Dore ga kimi no en desu ka?" So what this question is, "Dore ga kimi no en desu ka?" We're asking, this would be a situation in the case, say, you see a couple of pens, you'd be asking, which pen is yours? And the way these words break down, dore, that's a question word. Dore is asking you which. It's referring to objects. Dore specifically asks which object. So which? Kimi no pen. Let's do this with a regular underline. Pen yours, because it's the pen that you own. And then that is, instead of using wa, instead of saying dore wa, the rule is to use dore ga. And that's for any kind of question word. You're asking dore, doko, dare, or dono, nani. Those words you always use ga to ask the question, I believe. And so here we have is. So you can also, as another example here, if I were to use instead of dore, if I were to say use like what, if I were to ask instead of a which question, I would ask a what question. It'd be something like nani ga, and here you can see I'm using more kanji in this one. Namae that one looked really sloppy. This so this is asking nani ga namae desu ka? What is your name? And while you may know that you can use words like kimi or anata to refer to someone specifically as you, the context is typically obvious when you're talking directly to someone, that you don't need to ask, you don't need to use the word you directly. It's implied just by you asking a specific person. So, nani is what, as many people know. Namae, that is your name, or that is name. We'll say your name. Ga, that's again is, and desu ka, that is our questioning. So just using those different markings to symbolize how sort of the Japanese and English relate to each other. It's not necessarily a one-to-one kind of thing, but it is very similar in structure for where we're at right now. So next, we talked about kore, dore, are, and dore. And these are all general terms. They don't specify objects in particular. It usually just refers to an object that you'd be pointing to or something that you'd be holding. If you want to be more specific, we then use the following terms. So again, we have that koso ado. Here we have kono, sono, ano. Exactly like this and that. That's what all these terms refer to. And dono. So kono refers to, again, this blank. So usually you'd follow it with a word. You could say something like konoshitsu, or konoheya would be this room. Konosekai would be this world. Let's say here we have sono. That would be, or I guess I should say this, close to speaker. Sono would be that blank, close to listener. So if you're talking to someone and there's something close to them, you would say that, you would say sono. Ano would be that again, but also far from both parties. And then dono would be, again, which. So if you think about it, I'm going to actually use some media references here. If you think about for Kono, right? One of my favorite games ever, The World Ends With You. The Japanese title for that game was Subarashiki Kono Sekai. So obviously it doesn't follow the same grammar structure exactly, but when we think about this, when you think about the logic of rules here, Subarashiki is wonderful. Kono is that. And Sekai is world. A very literal translation of this title would be that wonderful world, though if we were translating this into English a little bit more properly with a little bit more nuance and understanding of how things translate back and forth, the translation ended up being It's a Wonderful World. But that is an example of kono being used in conjunction with a noun. Kono sekai is, or not that world, oops. Sorry about that. It would be this wonderful world. Which kind of sounds weird, which is why they ended up, a lot of people who like fan translated it refer to it as It's a Wonderful World. Not too far from meaning, but it could be read either way. So that would be an example of kono. Let me delete this. An example of sono. I've never actually watched this show, but like, I feel like it's like the easiest thing to think of when I think of that word. Would be sono chi no ne, which apparently is a JoJo's reference, but first words here, sono chi. Sono is that, as if you were talking to someone, talking about their, chi being blood. I believe Sadame was destiny when I looked it up. I don't actually know that word, but I believe that is what that word means. So if we were to translate this, chi no sadame, this is destiny's blood, the destined blood. So it's saying that blood of destiny, I believe. Let me just make sure that I'm not pulling things out from nowhere. I will double check that because I checked it last night when I was looking for examples. So I do want to confirm here. Yeah, fate or destiny. So like fate's blood. For that fated blood. So that would be Sono-chi, that blood. And then one other example I'm going to use. Even though it's not the actual title of the show, it's abbreviated to this. So, very sad anime. Just to use as an example for the term ano, there is Anohana. And that would be saying like that. Flower. So like the subtitle for Anohana when you like watch it in English is we don't remember, or Anohana, that flower, the flower we saw that day. Anohana being that flower in the distance. Like you and the person you're speaking to are looking over somewhere far away and you see a flower there. The actual title is like really long, but the word anho is actually followed by ano e, which actually would be that day. Because the real, or the full name of the show is we can't recall the name of the flower we saw that day. So ano-hi is the translated, is where the work term that day comes from. Because we're thinking about a day that's far in the past, not close to either of us. So that is what these terms refer to. The difference between kono and kore is that kore, we don't actually name like the object we're talking about. In the previous example, for example, I said kore wa ikura desu ka while talking about an item. And let me actually write this down. Let's say buying a pencil. You could say it in two ways. Very long pencil. And then we have the clerk over here at the table. You could say kore wa ikura desu ka? Which again says, how much is this? But if you want to be more specific, instead of using kore, we would say kono en itsu wa. Yes, if it was far away, like if you're pointing like to an object behind the counter, it would be sono pen wa ikura desu ka if it was a pen. So it's all relative to the distance of the speaker and the listener. Sono enpitsu wa ikura desu ka. So that's the difference between saying kore and kono. Kono is more specific. Kore is very general. You're just talking about any general item. While kono, you specify the item that you're talking about. Kono enpitsu is literally this pencil is ikura is how much. That's which part? the difference between kore and kono? Yeah, kono will always name the object. Kore just is this. Kono is what you say when you want to say this item. And so the response from the clerk would be, for the first one, would be Sore wa, and we could say, I'm just going to use the number for now, 500 500 yen desu. That is 500 yen. You would say konopen. Kore is supposed to just be like no items involved, just you're talking about an item that you're holding. Kind of like you're like pointing at it as opposed to like stating a specific object. We would use kore or just it's like shorter to say, very non-specific, but if it's obvious what you're talking about, you would use kore. Otherwise it would be konopen. And same here. It would be sono and itsu. Like 500 and this. So functionally, kore and kono do mean the same thing. They're both saying this. It's just the rule, I guess. It's not something I've particularly questioned, but I guess it has to do with the flow of the sentence. I'm not like fully learned because I'm still studying, but from what I've gathered, it just flows better to say kono and then the item, as opposed to kore and then the item. I'm not sure what the actual grammatical reason would be. So it... Right, this one. That's a good way to put it. Like kore being this one, while kono being just this. That's a good way to put it. So like, we can actually write that. I think that helps a little bit to differentiate between the two. I'm gonna erase both of these actually, because then similarly sore would be that one. I think that helps a bit. How much is this one? That one is 500 yen. And then kono, we always follow up with a noun saying that this blank, kono enpitsu wa 500 yen. So this would be that pencil is 500 yen. So that is sort of the difference between kono, sono, and then kore, sore. And then also, similarly, how we talked about dore in the previous section, if we ask a question, if we want to talk about, say, you're in a store and you see multiple different writing utensils, like different pens, you want to like price check them, you could say something like this. Dono. And let's just say pen. Pen. Ga. let's just say in this case here, this is asking dono pen ga 1200 yen desu. It's asking dono is which, pen is 1200 yen. So we say dono when we're asking about a specific object between multiple of the same object. Which pen, which food costs how much money. We were talking about furniture, you'd be talking about like which chair costs X amount, as just simpler examples. So that's how we use dono. And remember, since it is a question, we have to use the ga instead of the wa. That's also the big difference there, is that questions typically will use ga instead of wa when we're asking. Wait, I've also forgot to put this. Question words. So like, in the previous example, we just ask, like, これはいくらですか? It doesn't have a question word in it, it just has the particle for questioning at the end. But words like dono, or dono, nani, dore, those are all question words specifically. So those words all use the particle ga instead of wa, words that intentionally ask a question. So let me make this chart so far. I'm gonna make a chart sort of listing out what we've gone through. Let me get some shapes here. Actually, I'm not even gonna do shapes. Let's do... Ooh, straight line. That's not what I wanted. 2, 3, 4. Ooh, that one's kind of a little too close. Thank you. So we have ko, so, a, and do. Those are ko, so, a, do. I. And then we have de. We have no. That's 2 that we've gone through so far. Actually, I can do a little bit more space. Okay. We'll do this. We'll do no. And the one we're going to go to next is going to be ko. So these are the 3 main things, the 3, or I guess the 12 different combinations that we're going to go through right now. So kore is this one. Sore is that one. Are, that one. Far. So it's far from both the speaker and the listener. And then dore. Wait, I didn't even write out the whole thing there. Wondering why I had enough space to write that out. Let me lower the pen size a bit. The brush size is a bit big. Oh wait, that was the eraser. And let me just write this. I think it's important to have... I think tables like this are really helpful. I want to make sure that it is good. Do this. Are is that one bar. And then dore is which one? Then we have kono, which is this blank. So it refers to a noun. Actually, let me... We say sono. That noun. Ano is that noun, but also it's far. And then dono, it is which noun. So that's where we're at so far. The last thing that I'm going to talk about, or I guess not the last thing, but the last part of this chart to talk about, is we're going to talk about oko, soko, asoko, not just ako. This one is a little different. And then doko. I feel like these ones you hear a lot. And what these are... Yeah. Questions? Do you have questions? Or are you asking questions? Oko is here. So, as opposed to how kore and kono were this object near me, oko is here. Near speaker. Soko is there. Near listener. Asoko is there. Far away. Close. The last one is actually the question. Yes, yes. So, like, I know a lot of people play Among Us, and it's a very easy concept to relate to, I guess, nowadays. So, you could hear someone asking, like, body ga doko desu ka? Where is the body? And then they would respond to where in the ship the body is. Doko is where. The ko's, all the ko suffixes, tell us location. And what makes these differ as well in writing, as opposed to kono and kore, is that these get placed after the particle. So for example, I could ask for directions. If I was being polite, I could ask sumimasen. And then I could ask the age-old question, toire wa doko. Oh wait, it would be wa because this comes the question word comes after the particle. Doko desu ka? So this would be saying, excuse me. I don't like how close I word those two words together. So, excuse me. Where is the bathroom? And a very common word that is used to talk about restroom. You can get away with not using the Japanese word for it. You can just say toire, which is just a shortening or sort of using English pronunciation, not English, Japanese pronunciation for the English word for toilet. It's toire. Toire wa doko desu ka? So excuse me. The where is covered by the doko. The bathroom, that's toire. Wait, did I write it backwards? Oh, I totally wrote that backwards. Katakana is my passion. There we go. Toire wa doko desu ka? And so that is what we get. The bathroom, and obviously the is just... It's alright, even in the subjects that I'm certified to teach, I still make mistakes, so... In the subject that I'm studying myself, I'm sure it's a little passable. So you can see here, we use the kosoado terms. The doko, unlike it with kore and sore, are, dore, unlike those words, this comes after the particle. The response to this would then be followed up with... I wrote this backwards every time I wrote this in my notebook, too. So you could say, this would be optional to say, toire wa. You could say, doko desu. So what this says is the bathroom is there. And you would say this if the bathroom was near them. Say like they were asking you that question and the bathroom was right behind them. You would just say toire wa soko desu or soko desu. Because the speaker already specified that they're asking about the bathroom, you don't need to reiterate the sentence again. So they would ask, sumimasen, toire wa doko desu ka? And then you would respond, soko desu, over there. And this works for any of them too, like if the bathroom was right next to you. So asoko is like, let's say I was over here, and the person speaking to me is also here. I do lessons every Thursday, yes. Have a good dinner. And say the bathroom was over here. So since the two speakers are close to each other, and the bathroom is in the distance, we would say asoko. Because it means that it's far away from both the listener and the speaker. Meanwhile, soko would be used... Yes. If the listener was over here, we would then use just... We would be using just soko. Because it's there right next to them. And if I was the speaker, or if I was a person here, and the person I'm speaking to instead was over there, I would point to the building and say, koko desu. So koko desu is here, soko desu would be there next to the person you're speaking to, and asoko would be far away from both of you. And there's not too much I need to expand on that, I don't think. So let's go back to that chart. There we go. So we have koko is here. We have soko is there. We have asoko, which is there, but far. And then doko would be where. And to note, these both are used, re and no, kore, kono, sore, sono. These come before particle. And the koko, soko, asoko, doko comes after particle. So that's the big thing with these terms. These all indicate locations, the location of an item or an item at a specific location, and their placement in the sentence is based off of, is just specific in relation to which kind of term you're talking about, whether you're talking about a specific object or you're talking about a location. All right. So now, the one last thing I'm going to talk about, and then I'll wrap up this lesson. We talked about, last week, we talked about the particle no, and how it's used for possession. Like, for example, I could say, watashi no... I tried to save that. We talked about watashi no enpitsu. This is my pencil. Because it's the pencil that you own. So now, when we ask who owns something, when we ask who owns something, this is different from the other terms that we use. It's not a do term, but it's going to be a ask who owns. We use dare. Like, whose is this? So for example, I could ask the following. Let me just move this all at once. I think I could save a little bit more space here. We could ask, oh, hey Peng, thank you for following. Welcome to class. We're about to wrap up the lesson, but you can catch up on this last note that we're going to talk about. So we're going to say kore. Like we said, this means this. Kore wa dare no zaifu desu ka? So here, kore, like we said earlier, that represents this one. This one. Wa is. And then as you can see here, right, so like I said, the da, or the ga, is applied when the question word is used before the particle here. So you see how dare comes after the particle. Because of that, we're still using wa. It was words like dore. You would say dore ga. You would say nani ga. You would say dono. Let's just say pen for this case. Dono pen ga. But as you see here, the word we're opening the sentence with, the first word of the sentence is kore. Kore is not a question word, so we don't follow with ga. Since the question comes after wa, we still use the particle wa. That's a good question though, because that is a tricky rule that we only switch the particle when the first word is a question word. So this is dare no enpitsu, or this is dare no saifu. So dare no saifu. This means wallet. And dare is who. So the wallet of who, or whose wallet. And desu ka is just our question mark, essentially. So this question is, kore wa dare no saifu desu ka? We're asking, whose wallet is this? And the answer to that would just be, say it was my wallet, I would say, sore wa boku no saifu desu. And this just says that one is, and then boku no saifu is the wallet of mine, or my wallet. No petting in the classroom. They say as teachers we have to stop a lot of contact between the students. It's alright. So here we can see the sentence, sore wa boku no saifu desu. That one is my wallet. Alright, so I have is right. So in that case, kore wa. How do you write so in katakana? I've forgotten my tables as well. I'm gonna write it in hiragana because I don't want to remember right now. So. Oh, right. It looks like. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, son. Right. I even mentioned that similarity. Zo. B. Desu ka? Like we talked about, the general questions, like if it doesn't use a question word, since it's saying, is this a zombie? It's not using question words like what, or who, or where. Questions that are like, is this? Those kinds of questions, as long as your sentence ends with ka, that's just saying, kore wa zombie desu ka? It's saying, is this a zombie? If we took out the ka, that would change the sentence into meaning, this is a zombie. Alright. In the case here, it's just important to note with this no possession here, we ask kore wa dare no saifu desu ka? As opposed to if we just ask kore wa saifu desu ka? That would just be asking, is this a wallet? But since we're specifying dare no is an indicator of someone owning an object. Kore wa dare no saifu desu ka? Oh, wow, that intonation was awful. I don't claim to be excellent at Japanese pronunciation. In fact, I'm very bad at it. So if you ever notice that my pronunciation is probably wildly off, I know. But it's something I think that you're supposed to learn over time. If there's ways my intonation could get better, I wouldn't mind it being pointed out what I could say differently. But anyway, you would respond with sore wa boku no saifu. So again, you're saying that it is my wallet. If I were saying that it was, say, Peng's wallet, I would be saying sore wa Peng no saifu desu. I'm glad you understand me. I'm trying my best. And I'm still learning. We're all learning here. I just want to share what I've learned with everyone else. And that's really the last thing I want to talk about. So the big thing is... not that. This chart here. That's the main part of this lesson here. Is that understanding that we have these location terms kore, sore, are, dore, kono, sono, ano, dono, koko, soko, asoko, and doko. These are terms that we use to refer to location, terms that we use to refer to where an object is, and how we can include them in certain sentences. Oh, wow, we actually got an hour with that. Yeah, I was actually going to upload this to I was going to post this because I think it's a pretty nice reference. And what was I going to say? I think that's it. So last week I tried to go through like all of the chapter at once, and I think it ended up with me being a little bit all over the place. I think here's a good stopping point. There's still a little bit of material left in the chapter that I might reserve for like a lesson that's supposed to be a little bit more over the place, but I think this is a good way to end today's class. I think just going over the kosoado and the different forms of them is pretty good. About the name question slide, which one is that one? Ooh, wait. I think I remember. Where did I write that? But yeah, feel free to talk about your suggestion. There we go. This one? Yeah. So what do you have to comment? There's something that I missed? A more natural formation for that question would be Namae wa nan desu ka? Oh, right. Right, because it would be kind of weird. I feel like it is kind of probably rude, maybe? Namae? And I'll write my name in a sec. Namae wa. Since by putting up the nan up with the ga, emphasis is more like a clarification. Oh, okay. Yeah, your name is what? Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Thank you for that. So we say namae wa nan desu ka? And again, let me do the same markings just so that it lines up. So again, ga and wa both mean that same thing, that state of being. It's just the context in which the particle changes. Nani ga, because nani is a question word, we precede it with ga. But in the case here, namae is not a question word, namae just means name. So namae wa nan desu ka? The question word comes after the particle. And it's still asking the same thing, what is your name? But I guess this is probably more polite. So, thank you. Thank you for that. It's important that people catch me on that stuff because as I'm studying, like I said, I'm still studying, so there's probably some things that I'll miss out on in terms of, like, things that may or may not be rude. So, I would say, in response to that, and to answer Sierra's question, I could say namae. Actually, I wouldn't need to say namae again because, like I said in the previous, or when we were talking about where the bathroom is, this is sort of a formality. You don't need to say namae wa. You could, but you could just follow up by just saying Eri o and I can't fit it here because I ran out of space. This. Erioto desu. Namae wa Erioto desu. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope you learned something or enjoyed seeing me go through what I've studied. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. I'll be live again next Thursday, same time, 6:30, or not 6:30, 6 o'clock p.m. EST. So the next lesson, we'll be finishing up here. We're going to talk a little bit more about some particles and some extra grammar stuff that I have to read up on. And the chapter following that, I read through, but I also forgot, so it'll be a surprise. When I post the thumbnail for the next lesson, we'll have a better idea. Have a great night, everybody. And I'll see you all then. Or I'll see you guys on Saturday if you catch my Fire Emblem stream. We're making some pretty good progress there. So have a good night, everyone.